Carter Brown, Mysteries. Adventures in excitement and suspense, based on the best-selling novels by the slick storytelling sensation, Carter Brown.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? This is Carter Brown with another of my books for you. A story I've called Donna Was Poison. You could also call it Tempest in Television, only I wouldn't like to think this sort of thing normally happened in TV. As for my hero, well, I'm not going to tell you anything about him, except his name, Rock Stone. You can find out everything else from him.
In the glare of the bright lights, the woman backed away from me, her beautiful features contorted in fear and dismay. One elegant hand crept up to her mouth, and the tense posture of her body indicated the tumult of her racing thoughts. I stared at her, impassive, implacable, with just the faintest trace of a smile on my lips. Her voice, when it came, was husky and low.
You know.
I know, Mrs. West. I knew from the time you failed to identify your husband's body as your husband. I knew you were not Mrs. Adele West at all, but her twin sister, Adeline. You impersonated your sister in the hope of stealing the West diamonds.
You devil.
You murdered your sister so that you could take her place. What you didn't know, Adeline, was that only 3 hours before she had murdered her husband to prevent him discovering that she had pawned the West diamonds to pay her gambling debts.
I guess it's hopeless trying to fool you, Inspector Stone.
You can't fool the homicide squad. And don't bother to open your purse and grab for that gun inside. I took the precaution of emptying it 10 minutes ago.
You...
Okay, Sergeant. Take her away. It's like I always say, folks. There's no future in murder. The clue to next week's show will be seen in the windows of our sponsor, Lacey's Departmental Store, on Thursday morning. Make sure you take a good look, friends. A clue in itself can be a small thing, but it can lead to the electric chair. So, till next week, this is Inspector Rockstone bidding you good night.
Tune in next week, same time, same channel, for another story starring Rock Stone as the inspector, who proves that there's no future in murder.
Well, wraps it up for tonight. All right, Fred, you can strike now.
That last scene played beautifully, I thought, Rock.
Say, thanks, honey.
It was fun being in the show with you. Do you think our producer was happy about it?
Our producer, Miss Arlene Molden, is a woman, but definitely. And who can tell what a woman thinks, huh?
Only another woman. So long, Rock.
So long, honey.
Well, that's another one over. It was a good show, Rock.
Arlene, coming from you, that's really something.
Why? Am I such a tyrant?
No. But there are enough distractions for an actor working in TV without a producer who puts so much vitality into her vital statistics.
You ought to pass snappy cracks like that on to Sam Long. He might be able to use them in next week's script.
And speaking of which, what's the gimmick for Lacey's window display the next show?
It's a Lulu. Let's walk over to your dressing room. I'll tell you all about it.
Fine. This noise isn't doing my ulcer any good.
You read Sam's script for the next show? Donna Was Poison, he's called it.
I had a quick look at it.
Well, we've had 2 dummies made. One of you and one of the girl who's murdered. The window dressers will set them up in the window, and on Thursday morning, when the blinds are lifted, the public will see you just entering the room with the girl's body slumped in a chair and an upturned glass on the table beside her.
Yeah, what's the vital clue?
The upturned glass, stupid. Don't you remember in the script the girl is poisoned with belladonna? In her last moment, she turns the glass upside down.
What for?
It gives a clue to the poisoner. The butler did it. And the butler always keeps the glasses upside down in the liquor cabinet.
Holy cow. Did Sam Long dream that up all by himself?
You worry about your acting. I'll worry about the script.
Well, there's something else I'm worried about.
What?
These stunts you pull every week to tie in with the show, like this gimmick in Lacey's window. You know, I think we should drop them.
Not on your life. They're worth thousands of dollars in publicity.
Look, I had a nasty phone call from a real inspector of homicide last week about that stunt of yours with a girl in her underwear being chased by a gunman down 5th Street. Well, Inspector Jakes was very annoyed about the whole thing.
Forget it, Rock. We'll make a sizable contribution to the police pension fund or something the next couple of weeks. That'll keep them quiet. Anyway, this scene in Lacey's window shouldn't upset them.
I hope you're right, but I doubt it. Inspector Jakes made a lot of rude remarks to me.
Maybe he doesn't like your acting. Well, you better go and get your makeup off and have a good rest. I'll pick you up at 7 on Thursday morning.
7? Hey, that's in the middle of the night. Why should I be there? You usually handle these things yourself.
You're featured in this display. You're a dummy, remember?
Yeah, you flatter me. Oh, what a way to make a living.
Honey, I'd feel sorry for you if it wasn't for all that money you're making.
Mr. Stone, thank goodness you've come.
Yeah?
I've been waiting for you to come home. Oh, Mr. Stone, I have to talk to you.
Now, look, baby, I'm awfully tired. I'm about to open this door and hit the hay. You know, can it wait?
It's urgent, Mr. Stone.
Okay, you better come in. Yeah. Now then, what's all this about?
My name is Hannah Vogue, Mr. Stone. I'm an actress.
Oh, congratulations.
I'm playing on one of your shows next week.
Well, that's fine.
I'm frightened, Mr. Stone. There's something wrong, terribly wrong.
If it's as bad as that, I can probably get them to rewrite your part for you.
I don't mean with my part or the show. I'm talking about real life. It affects you as well as me. It affects the whole show. I only found out by accident, and I'm scared, Mr. Stone. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid to go to the police because they won't believe me. And then he'll know, and I'll be...
Hey, is this some elaborate kind of a gag?
I knew it. You won't believe me either. You think I'm crazy before I've even told you what it's all about.
Honey, can you blame me? But go on, I'll listen.
No, what's the use? It's no good you won't believe me. No one will believe me.
I must be dreaming. And I'm not even in bed. It was Thursday morning, just before Lacey's departmental store was due to open for business. Outside, there was already a crowd spilling over the sidewalk. Inside, there was a character with rimless glasses and a fixed smile. Arlene Malden introduced us.
Rock, this is Lacey's manager, Mr. Sebastian Sheep.
An honor to meet you, Mr. Stone. Or should I say, Inspector?
With a name like that and a line of dialogue like that, is he real?
I beg your pardon?
Oh, Mr. Stone likes his little joke. Remember Lacey's sponsor the show?
Perhaps you'd like to take a look at the display before we lift the blinds. I think you'll be very pleased with it.
We'd love to take a look, Mr. Sheep.
Splendid. There we are. You can step right into the window. Just take care not to disturb anything. The dummies are remarkable, I think. Just look at your likeness, Mr. Stone. How do you like meeting your double? And a girl.
Hey, isn't that Hannah Vogue?
It's a dummy of her. I didn't know you knew her.
Oh, we met.
It's amazingly lifelike, isn't it?
Amazing. Say, the gleam in that red hair. And how do you like that skin texture? Man, it looks like the real thing. Say, I wonder if it feels the same.
Ah! Don't do that. I must say, for a man who plays the part of a homicide cop, you're unduly sensitive to atmosphere.
You don't understand.
It's a compliment to our window dresses. Is that what you mean, Mr. Stone?
I tell you, give me your hand, Arlene.
Oh, darling, how touching, but this isn't the place to hold hands.
I don't want to hold it. I want to guide it. Now, you feel...
Oh, well, of all that...
Yeah, you see what I mean? She's real. She's been murdered.
Murdered?
We'll have to get the police.
Yes, but we'll have to get the newspapers first.
What?
Do you realize this is the greatest publicity gimmick of all time? A real murder. A real corpse taking the place of a dummy in a window display.
I am thinking of it. And it's making my insides churn.
I'll call the papers first. I want them to get pictures of the police coming in the window. Then I'll call homicide.
Homicide. That means Inspector Jakes.
I suppose so. Why?
Goodbye.
Where are you going?
South America.
Don't be stupid, Rock.
Stupid? That Inspector Jakes was rude to me about a traffic block. What's he going to be about a murder?
Well, the great Inspector Stone, the wonder boy of Copland. There's no future in murder, he says, and he says it every week.
Hello, Inspector.
And now you've turned up a real-life corpse. It just so happens that the corpse is part of one of your corny publicity stunts. Did she volunteer to die for you?
I don't know a thing about it, Inspector Jakes, honest.
By a remarkable coincidence, every newspaper in town gets to hear about the murder before homicide does. You wouldn't have anything to do with that, would you, Inspector?
Oh, no.
Well, I'm going to do the right thing by you, Inspector. I wouldn't spoil your show for anything. Never let it be said that the homicide squad doesn't appreciate a fellow fighter against crime. Let the press boys in, Sergeant. Okay, quiet. That's better. Now I'm giving you boys a break. You can quote me on all of this.
Hey, you feeling all right, Inspector?
Yeah, I'm feeling fine. I'm never better. You boys know what's happened? The window was set for a publicity stunt for the TV show. There's no future in murder. Someone substituted a real corpse for the dummy.
That's not telling us a thing worth quoting.
I haven't finished. This is the bit that will interest you. I've just been talking to Inspector Rockstone here, and he wants to go on record as saying that no one is going to get away with murder on his show.
Oh, now, look,
He says he personally pledges himself to bring the murderer to justice, to solve his crime.
I didn't...
And what's more, he doesn't wish for the cooperation of the homicide squad. He intends to handle it alone.
Hey, is that right?
That's a story for you. A real-life murderer turns Stone into a real-life cop. Who knows? Maybe he'll get himself murdered in the process.
Boy, what a story.
Okay, now you can blow. You get the story, and I hope you play it up big. I go on record as saying that the police department has the greatest respect for Inspector Stone's deductive powers, and they also know he has a hot lead which may well take him straight to the murderer.
Inspector Jakes, what's the idea?
I'm giving you a break. That's what. Every Tuesday night, you're so smart with a script somebody's written for you. Let's see how smart you are without a script.
But that crack about my having a hot lead. Supposing the murderer reads that. He might believe it.
He probably will.
He might kill me.
You never know. We might be lucky at that.
Yeah, but I don't want to...
I've given it to you on a plate. The camera's focused right on you. Go to it, Inspector.
Carter Brown, Mysteries. Adventures in excitement and suspense, based on the best-selling novels by the slick storytelling sensation, Carter Brown.
You get all the excitement of a dramatic situation with none of the worry, because it's all been worked out for you beforehand by a writer. But the fun fizzles out when a real-life dramatic situation ups and smacks you in the face, and there's no script to rely on. Now, just because my name was Rockstone, and they tacked the word inspector in front of it for my TV show, There's No Future in Murder, I was given star billing by Homicide Inspector Jakes when the actress Hannah Vogue was killed. Now, the inspector didn't like me, and this was his way of showing it.
Rock, darling, this is the most wonderful publicity the show could ever have had.
We look at things from different angles. You're the producer, Arlene. That's fine for you. I'm just an actor, and right now I wish I'd never gone to drama school.
What a story. Front page in every paper. Inspector Rockstone, TV's tech hunts for killer. There's no future in murder, says Stone, with a hot lead to prove it. Ah, this is terrific.
This is terrible.
Inspector Jakes may have shoved this onto you, Rock, but you'll have to go through with it. You'll have to find the murderer. This will catch the public's imagination. They'll expect it.
You're crazy. How will I find who killed her?
Deduction. You've been playing this show for over a year. Sam Long does a lot of research to make the scripts look authentic. You're a cop, Rock. Just play it the way you would in the show.
But this is for real. Supposing I did find the murderer.
That would be wonderful.
Except that the murderer mightn't have the same script as I have. He might rewrite it with me as the corpse.
Let's worry about that when you found him. Come on, Rock, give. Start deducting.
Well, okay, I guess I can try. Now, Hannah Vogue was to be on next week's show. You auditioned her for it, right?
Correct, Inspector Stone.
Well, how did you find her? Did she come from a casting agency?
No, as a matter of fact, Sam introduced her to me. He said she'd had some theater experience and needed a break. It was only a small part, and she had the looks for it, so I gave it to her.
Sam Long. Hey, maybe we're starting to get someplace.
There you are. You see how easy this deduction is once you get going?
Yeah. Where would I find Sam at this time of the day?
No, that's easy. Harry's bar. Let's go.
Hi there, Sam. Hey, we've been looking for you.
Ah, the great Inspector Stone. Following your hot lead, Inspector?
That was Jake's idea, and I'm stuck with it. Hey, listen, Sam. Arlene tells me you introduced Hannah Vogue to her.
That's right. So what?
Say, what do you know about her?
Sorry, Inspector. That's confidential.
Oh, come on, Sam. Somehow Rock has to solve this thing, or there'll be no show anymore, and we'll all be out of a job.
Yeah, that's a point. Okay, but don't quote me. Someone whispered gently in my ear that Hannah Vogue was a brilliant young actress who should get a break on the show.
Well, who said that?
I told you, don't quote me. Our revered sponsor himself.
You mean Aldous Lacey?
Of Lacey's departmental store, the very same. I was told not to mention his name, but all the same, he wanted to see her appear on the show or else.
You'll have to talk to him, Rock.
To the sponsor? Are you nuts?
Well, it has to be done, and you'll have to do it alone.
Well, if that isn't typical. The producer gives the orders, the poor dumb actor has to do the work.
Come in, Stone, come in. Glad you called. I was just going to leave a message at the studio that I wanted to see you.
Oh? What about, Mr. Lacey?
I've read the story in the papers, and of course my manager, she told me what had happened. Your statement about intending to solve the murder yourself is a magnificent gesture, Stone. I congratulate you on it.
Thanks.
It'll be a wonderful thing for the show, and for me as the sponsor, of course. You'll need all the help you can get. That's why I was going to send for you.
Oh?
You're a man of the world, Stone. You'll understand when I say I knew Hannah Vogue rather well.
Oh, sure, Mr. Lacey.
And I wanted to help her. She aspired to be an actress. I told long to see she got a part in the show. I'm being quite frank about this, Stone. I trust you realize the necessity of a discretion on your part.
I'm a clam, Mr. Lacey.
If anyone else got to know this, anyone like the police, well, it could be most embarrassing for a man in my position.
Oh, naturally. I understand.
Good, then that's that.
Not quite, Mr. Lacey.
No? What else is there?
A couple of questions I'd like to ask.
Oh?
Have you any idea why she was murdered?
None at all.
When did you last see her?
Well, it must have been Tuesday night. Yes, we watched a show at her apartment. I left about 9.
Did she seem worried about anything?
Not at all. She was her usual vivacious self.
Oh, well, thanks, Mr. Lacey. Oh, just one other thing. Would you give me the address of her apartment?
Yes, of course. I'll write it down for you. Yes, here you are.
Thank you.
Are you planning to call them?
Uh-huh.
Well, in that case, perhaps I'd better give you the key, too.
On my way to Hannah Vogue's apartment, I wondered about the strange contrast in the dead girl's behavior. According to Aldous Lacey, when he saw her on Tuesday night, she was her usual vivacious self. When I saw her, later that same Tuesday night, she was scared, almost incoherent. I stood inside her apartment and looked around. It was really quite a layout. Obviously, any girl under Aldous Lacey's protection had nothing but the best. I stepped over to the door of the bedroom.
Ah!
Well. An inhabitant. And what an interesting inhabitant.
Who are you? How did you get in here?
With this key? Hey, how did you? This is Hannah Vogue's apartment.
I'm a friend of Hannah's. She invited me to stay here. I only arrived yesterday.
Did you know she'd been murdered?
Yes, the police were here today asking questions. I answered them all. And now here I am answering more from someone I don't even know.
Well, we can remedy that. My name's Stone. Rock Stone.
The television star? The man who's made all the headlines and who's going to track down Hannah's murderer?
That's right.
Mr. Stone, I think you're wonderful.
You do?
I certainly do. And I'd like to help you find the killer.
Well, that's very kind of you, Mr.
I'm Lois Shaw.
Oh, nice to know you, Lois.
It'll be even nicer once we're working closer together.
Huh?
Well, you're going to let me help you in your search for the murder, aren't you?
If you get as close as that, you won't be helping. You'll be hindering.
But it'd be fun, wouldn't it?
I'm not interested in fun right now. I got too much else on my mind. Anyway, how can you help me?
I could give you a tip.
Such as?
Ask your producer, Arlene Malden, about her sister, Kathy.
I never knew she had a sister, Kathy.
Kathy died. Ask Miss Malden how.
I left the luscious Lois puzzling over her cryptic reference to Kathy Malden's death and headed for Harry's bar, where I expected to find Arlene and Sam still waiting for me. But there was a message that they'd gone to the studio. When I arrived there, I found I'd forgotten about the conference for the next program of There's No Future in Murder.
We've got the scripts. All we've got to do is check through them in case anyone has any bright ideas. Then I can go ahead with the casting. I have to get someone else to play the murdered girl, of course.
Hey, hold it a minute, Arlene.
What is it, Rock?
We can't do this show next week.
Why not?
Well, maybe you've forgotten, Sam, that Inspector Jakes told the press that Inspector Rockstone was going to solve Hannah Vogue's murder.
Well, no, but I don't see...
If we're going to keep any viewers at all for the program, next week's show's got to be devoted to the case of Hannah Vogue. In the next show, Inspector Rockstone has to reveal the murderer's identity.
Hey, that's a colossal idea. Here, give me the details and I'll start work on the script right away.
I haven't any details.
What are you talking about?
The show will have to be played without a script. It'll have to be an impromptu job. We'll have to play it by ear.
What?
Yeah, that's right.
Aren't you overlooking one minor point? You have no more idea right now who killed her than I have, or Inspector Jakes has.
Well, that doesn't matter. We do the show just as it happened. We can get photographs to use from the newspaper boys. We'll make sure everyone concerned appears in front of the cameras. Even if we don't find who the murderer is then, we've still got a so-called finish. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just seen the actual events which took place. You have seen and heard everyone connected with the girl, Hannah Vogue, who was poisoned. One of them may be her murderer. Who is your choice?
Hey!
Can you imagine what that will get us?
Yes, about $3 million worth of libel suits.
My bet is it'll get us the murderer. Hey, imagine the strain of appearing in front of the cameras knowing 1 million people are watching you. How easy it would be to make one small slip of the tongue, one small fatal slip, that reveals you as the murderer.
People will just refuse to appear on the show, that's all, including the murderer.
No, they wouldn't dare. Look, imagine the question mark in people's minds if someone refuses to cooperate. It'd practically brand them as the murderer right away.
Yeah, he's right, Arlene. He's really got an idea there.
Well, I suppose it could be possible. And if by any chance we unmasked the murderer, it'd lift the show's rating like nothing else could.
Well, it looks like you two don't need me anymore. Since I haven't any script to write, I might as well gravitate back to Harry's. You can catch me there if you want me.
So long, Sam.
Listen, Rock, do you know any more than you're telling? I mean, this idea of an off-the-cuff show, you must have something to go on.
Not really, Arlene. I've only been around asking questions. Oh, and there's one that was suggested I ask you.
Oh?
About your sister.
Kathy.
Yeah, in particular, about how she died.
Who suggested you ask me?
Well, the girl I found in Hannah Vogue's apartment. A girl called Lois Shore.
Never heard of her. How on earth does she know anything about it?
I don't know, but apparently she does. Oh, look, if you don't want to talk about it, Arlene.
No, I guess you might as well know. Kathy was found in a swimsuit on the beach at San Antonio, drowned. Coroner's court brought in a verdict of accidental death.
See, that's tough.
It's even tougher than you know, Rock. Kathy was 5 years younger than me. She was always a wild kid. She was working as a model in L.A., and then I found she'd given that up, was living in San Antonio in a house that a man was renting. I wrote to her warning her. I said the man would get tired of her and throw her out. She wrote back and told me that would never happen because she knew too much about him. I didn't pay any attention to that at the time.
Go on, Arlene.
Then, some months later, I got another letter. What I'd prophesied had happened.
Yeah, the guy had thrown her over.
Yes, but she wasn't standing for it. She'd told him she wanted $100,000 compensation, or she'd give him $100,000 worth of publicity that would ruin him. I didn't get any letters after that because she died.
Gee whiz. Well, is that all?
Not quite, Rock, but I'm afraid I've overdone the build-up. The punchline will probably be a letdown. You see, the man was Aldous Lacey.
Carter Brown, Mysteries. Adventures in excitement and suspense, based on the best-selling novels by the slick storytelling sensation, Carter Brown.
It was a great idea of mine to do an impromptu show devoted to the death of Hannah Vogue for the next TV presentation of There's No Future in Murder. But there'd be no future in TV for me if I didn't reveal the murderer on that show. Because to a million viewers, I wasn't Rockstone the actor. I was Inspector Rockstone, the infallible cop, who'd been put on the spot by a real-life cop, Inspector Jakes of Homicide.
What are you doing here, Stone? I'm a busy man.
Oh, I know that, Inspector. But I thought since you gave that tale to the papers about me solving the murder, you might tell me how things were going.
Yeah, I see nobody could have taken that bit seriously about you having a hot lead.
Why not?
You're still alive.
So's the murderer, unless you've arrested him.
It's only a matter of time.
Did you find out how the corpse got into Lacey's window?
Window was set up the night before. The window dressers left at 9 p.m., so whoever substituted the corpse for the dummy must have done it after that. 2 night watchmen claim they heard nothing. But one of the metal blinds closing off the loading dock at the back of the building shows signs of having been forced.
I see. What did you find out about Hannah Vogue?
She was an actress, and she'd been in this town about 6 months. She hadn't had any work since she got here. I don't know how she kept that apartment.
No hot lead, huh?
No. Why, do you know something?
Me, Inspector? I'm just a TV cop. How could I know anything? Hey, and speaking of TV, how about being in the studio for our next show?
Me? Why?
Well, we're doing the murder on the next program, and we'd like you to be there.
Hey, what's behind this? What are you up to, Stone?
Oh, nothing, Inspector. Just trying to carry out the promise you made to the newspapers in my name.
Stone, if you know anything, it's your duty to inform the police.
Oh, I shall, Inspector. But I don't want to make you look a liar to the general public.
What?
Well, you told the press boys that I would solve the murder, and that's what I'm trying to do. So long, Inspector. See you in the studio.
I think it's the most ridiculous idea I ever heard. I wouldn't allow it for one moment. To commercialize murder. It's unethical.
But, Mr. Lacey...
It's a crazy, preposterous idea. I won't hear another word about it, Stone.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Mr. Lacey. That means I'll have to scrap the idea of you introducing the show.
What? Well, me? Introduce it?
Well, that's what I had in mind. I naturally figured that you as our sponsor would open the program.
You wanted me to appear on the show?
Sure. With a statement to our audience about how you stood foursquare for justice and how this program would bring a murderer to justice.
Oh, no. Wait a minute. I hadn't thought of it quite like that before. That puts a different complexion on the matter.
Oh, does it, Mr. Lacey?
Of course. Now, this whole thing will have to be properly organized. We can't afford any slip-ups.
That's right, sir.
All right, get on to it, Stone.
Of course, Mr. Lacey. Just one other thing.
Yeah?
We'd like your manager, Mr. Sheep, to come along, too.
All right, I'll send him a memo about it.
Why, thank you. You know, there's one thing that's had me wondering about Mr. Sheep.
What's that?
If he can't sleep at night, what does he count? People? When I left Lacey's department store, I thought I ought to have a few words with Sam Long about the form the presentation ought to take. He wasn't to be seen at Harry's bar, so I headed for his apartment. I'd never been there before. Man, it was a shabby-looking building. I was surprised. Sam was making money. He could afford something better than that. There was no answer when I pressed the buzzer, but a door opposite opened, and a woman stuck her head out.
You looking for Mr. Long?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, he isn't in.
Yeah, that probably explains why he doesn't open the door.
Say, aren't you Inspector Rockstone?
That's right.
Gee, I always watch your program. That is, when my old man isn't working early shift. He gets home around 4 in the afternoon then, and we watch another channel.
Why?
He can't stand the sight of you. He says if you're a cop, he's a ballet dancer.
And he's not, I take it.
He works on the garbage collection.
Have you any idea where Mr. Long would be?
Try Harry's bar.
I have.
He's there most times. Drinks too much. He's changed since he first come here. He was different then.
Younger, perhaps.
Happier, too. They both were happy.
Did you say they?
Sure. Him and his wife.
Wife? Hey, I never knew he was married.
Oh, lovely little thing she was. An actress. But then they started in quarreling. Quarreled something terrible before she left him. Guess that's why he drinks so much.
You say she was an actress?
Uh-huh. Used to go mad at him, yelling it was his fault she couldn't get a job because he wouldn't help her.
You don't know the name that she used professionally?
No, never heard of it. But pretty as a picture she was, with her red hair and everything.
Red hair?
Flaming red. Lovely hair. Way mine used to be before it started falling out.
I can imagine.
Every time I saw her, I used to say to myself, Holy Hannah, if only my hair... Hey, that was her name, Hannah.
I left the talkative dame with my head reeling. Not only from her gabbling, but from the unexpected, astonishing information I'd stumbled on. Sam Long, married. And to a beautiful redhead actress named Hannah. And it was a beautiful redhead actress named Hannah who'd been found dead in Lacey's window. It looked as though Sam and I should have a long, confidential chat. But I ran into a complication with curves. A special set of curves called Lower Shore.
Oh, there you are, Mr. Stone.
Where else should I be, Miss Shore? This is the door to my apartment. I was about to open it and walk in.
Not yet. We've got to go somewhere else first.
The implication is that we can come back here afterwards?
Why, Mr. Stone, we hardly know each other.
A couple of hours of some low lights and lingering music could fix that.
I'll think about it. But now we'd better be on our way.
Well, where are we going?
You'll see when we get there.
Hey, why all the mystery?
Because it's important to me that whoever murdered Hannah Vogue is found. And it's important to you, too, isn't it?
Well, sure. But the trouble is that all I've got so far is a lot of questions with no answers.
Come with me and I guarantee you one of the answers. Maybe the most significant one.
Lois had a car and slid in behind the wheel. After a half-hour drive, we stopped outside a sprawling two-story house with grounds big enough to build an aircraft plant in.
You know who lives here?
Nobody in my income bracket.
The name is Tony Seguera.
Should I know him?
Tony Seguera is one of the 3 top syndicate men in the city.
Then I shouldn't know him.
I think you should. Let's go meet him.
She led the way up to the front door, where a butler carefully patted me in case I was carrying a gun, then led us into a large, luxuriously furnished room, and then discreetly retired. From a spidery-looking and expensive chair rose a spidery-looking, expensive character.
This is Rock Stone, Mr. Seguera.
Glad to know you, Stone. Pick up your show regular.
I'm pleased to hear it, Mr. Seguera. Say, do you like it?
Sure. I'm glad the regular cops aren't as smart as you. I'd be out of business.
But you are, aren't you, Tony?
Oh, sure. Legitimate business I'm in now. Trucking.
Tony's a sort of elder statesman for the syndicate in this area.
Yeah, you could call me that.
He's got some interesting information for you.
Glad to hear anything that might help me.
Now, this will, but you got to understand a few things first.
Huh?
Now, this dame getting herself knocked off in a store window, that's bad for the syndicate. Gets too much publicity. People start talking, say what it's doing in their city. Next thing you know, there's a reform party starts up, and we got to buy to keep things as they are. It costs too much dough.
Yeah, I can see that.
So we got no interest in this thing. It don't concern us until it gets publicity, and then it does.
I see.
Now, you're going to do a real-life show next Tuesday.
That's right.
You find the guy who did it on your show, and everybody gets happy, says, what a fine city we got, huh? Makes sense?
From your side of the fence, yeah.
So we're in your corner on this one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now, here's the facts. This Vogue dame is Aldous Lacey's dame, right?
Right.
She gets herself murdered. Why? Maybe because she found out something that Lacey don't want anybody else to know.
Could be.
Something like he's been spending more dough than he should have over the last couple of years, maybe. And he wants a quick investment with a large profit to get it back. So he puts $100,000 into the rackets when the syndicate can use the dough, and he collects 20% over 12 months.
With due respect to Tony, you could say this was right from the horse's mouth.
Now, the syndicate did the right thing by Lacey. We paid him his 20% a month ago and gave him back his $100,000. We're clean. But we don't want to get mixed up in this thing. Way we see it, the dame found out about it some way. Maybe she blackmailed Lacey, or maybe she threatened to talk to the cops. But that's why she was killed. We're sure of that.
Thanks, Mr. Seguera. Thanks a lot.
Oh, any time. Now, I just done you a favor. How about you do me one?
Well, what is it?
Well, you mention this in your show, that's okay with us. But just change it around a little. Not very much. Don't say he invested the dough in the rackets. Just say he invested in the syndicate through me. I'm okay. I'm clean. I've paid taxes on the dough I made on his dough. And make the point that Lacey got his dough back. We don't want people we do business with to doubt our honesty.
Sure, Mr. Seguera, I'll do that.
Fine. I look forward to seeing your show. I'm a real fan for your show. It's my second favorite TV show.
Which is first?
Hop along, Cassidy. He's a real nice guy. And so's his horse. And he keeps the kids on the straight and narrow. Lets them know that crime don't pay.
You approve of that?
Sure. You think we want the rackets to get overcrowded?
I just don't get it. How come you found all this out, Lois? And you know about Kathy Molden. Hey, where do you belong in this setup?
I'm just a girl who knows a guy. The guy being Tony Seguera. But right now I'm with another guy, and the lights are low, the music's lingering. I'm feeling languid. Didn't you say something about getting to know me better?
Oh, sorry, honey. This isn't my night for concentrating on anything except murder, that is.
You've just got a one-track mind.
You know, I thought it was a pretty brilliant idea. This live TV show to unmask a killer. With me on the spot the whole time.
Well?
Well, it just occurred to me. If anything goes wrong, and I'm in front of the cameras every minute...
Yes?
I'll make an awfully easy target. Won't I?
Carter Brown, Mysteries. Adventures in excitement and suspense, based on the best-selling novels by the slick storytelling sensation, Carter Brown.
Any actor worth his salt is generally nervous before a performance is due to begin. But this performance was something extra special, and so were the butterflies in my stomach. Because this program of There's No Future in Murder, which starred me, Rockstone, as television's Inspector Rockstone, was going to be devoted to disclosing the murder of Hannah Vogue, I hoped. That was why only part of the show had been planned, the early part. The rest of it had to be an impromptu affair with me in charge and with music improvised from the orchestra whenever I gave the signal. The signal was to be each time I scratched my ear. I only hoped the viewers wouldn't think their favorite cop had suddenly gone deaf.
15 seconds. Everybody quiet.
I watched our sponsor, Aldous Lacey, bracing himself as he faced number one camera. The orchestra leader stood with his baton raised as the seconds ticked away. And then, the show was underway. As the music hit its familiar theme, I knew the title cards would be flashing onto the screens of a million TV sets, and I mentally crossed my fingers.
My name is Aldous Lacey. I have the privilege tonight of introducing a special program of There's No Future in Murder. As sponsor of this series, Lacey's departmental store is proud to align itself with justice-loving people everywhere in an effort to solve a terrible crime, the murder of Hannah Vogue, whose body was found in our special display window last Thursday morning.
From then on, things went smoothly. This was the part that had been planned, rehearsed. Photographs flashed onto the screen of the window with the body in it. I did my commentary, then hurried over to set one to reenact the finding of the body with Arlene Molden and Sheep, the store manager. Then I scratched my ear for the orchestra leader. While the orchestra added some grim, ominous music, I raced over to camera outside set 2, Inspector Rockstone's office, and faced it ready for the red light. Ladies and gentlemen, you have seen the discovery of the body of Hannah Vogue. In my office, which I shall enter in a moment, a group of people have been gathered. I shall interview them. You've seen me do this many times, but I ask you to remember that tonight I am not an actor playing a role. I am a man, a citizen, trying to solve the murder of a beautiful girl. I am really you, a part of you. I am a conscience, yours and mine. The conscience of a city raising its voice to demand that justice should be done and the evildoer brought to a reckoning. All right, ladies and gentlemen. You all know what has happened. I am going to question you about the murder of Hannah Vogue. I know I have already asked you many questions in the last few days, but this time I shall be asking them in an effort to build up a pattern, a picture of Hannah Vogue's life, and perhaps, because of that, a picture of her death, of why she had to die. Firstly, Mr. Lacey.
Me?
You are Aldous Lacey, managing director of Lacey's Departmental Store.
Why, of course I am.
You knew the deceased, Hannah Vogue?
Yes, I knew her.
How much were you paying a month for the rental of her apartment? There is no point in hiding this, Mr. Lacey. You freely admitted to me in your office that you had been interested in the girl. How much?
$200 a month.
You knew she was an unsuccessful actress?
Yes.
Did you order Sam Long, the writer of the series, to see she was engaged for one of the shows?
Now, look, I don't see that...
Please answer the question, Mr. Lacey.
Well, I suppose if a man sponsors a show, what's wrong with seeing that someone he's interested in gets a chance?
Nothing, Mr. Lacey. Did you think there was?
Why, you...
The night before her body was found in the window, Wednesday night. Did you see her that night?
Oh, we had dinner, and then she had to leave.
You didn't go with her?
No.
Thank you. Miss Shaw, please.
Yes, Inspector Stone.
Your name is Lois Shaw, and you were a friend of Hannah Vogue.
That's correct.
You were staying at her apartment the night before the murder.
Yes, I was.
When did you last see her alive?
That evening. She left about 6:30. She said she was going to dinner. She never came back.
Thank you, Miss Shaw. Mr. Lacey, this girl was living in an apartment rented by you. She knew you very well. Well enough to realize you had a secret. She found out that secret. When you discovered she'd found out...
It's a lie. I had no secret. I had nothing to be ashamed of, to be kept hidden.
Didn't you, Lacey? Suppose I were to remind you of an investment you made a year ago.
Investment?
A short-term investment with high return. An investment placed in the hands of Tony Seguera, advisor to a group of men commonly known as the Syndicate. An investment with no papers signed and paid back to you, capital and interest, only last month. Wasn't that what you wanted kept quiet? That a supposedly respectable businessman like you had invested money in the Syndicate?
Well, why should I want to keep it quiet?
Oh, come, Mr. Lacey. Even a child has some idea of what the name Syndicate means today. That was your secret, wasn't it? The secret Hannah Vogue discovered. The secret which cost her her life.
I didn't kill her. I didn't kill her.
Now, a few questions for Mr. Long.
Okay.
You are Sam Long, the writer of There's No Future in Murder.
That's right.
Wasn't Hannah Vogue the name your wife used as an actress?
Yeah.
But you and your wife quarreled, and she left you some time ago. Why?
Because I wouldn't chisel her apart on this program, that's why.
And then, some months later, Lacey ordered you to find her a part in the show.
Yeah. Me, the guy she was married to who lost her because he wouldn't do just that.
Did you ever see your wife again?
Once. Last Tuesday night after last week's show. She came to see me. Told me she'd found out something about Lacey. But she was afraid he knew she'd found out. She asked me for advice, said she was scared, and what should she do?
And what did you tell her to do?
She was still my wife. She'd run out on me. She was living in an apartment paid for by another man. She'd got him to get her into the program, and then she came running back to me and asked me what she should do. I told her to get out of my apartment and never come back. That's what I told her to do. That was the last time I saw her alive.
I see. Thank you. Now, Mr. Sheep.
Yes, Inspector.
You are the manager of Lacey's Departmental Store.
Yes, that's right, Inspector.
Mr. Sheep, when you helped Mr. Lacey carry the corpse into the store window, did you take the head or the feet? Well, Mr. Sheep?
Oh, the shame of it. I've worked for the Lacys for 30 years. I've never had anything but respect and admiration and loyalty for them. He swore to me he hadn't killed her. But if the body were found in his apartment or his car, it would mean ruin for him, for the store, all the employees. I had to help him for their sake.
So you broke open the steel shutter on one of the loading docks to get in?
No, that was only to fool the police. We used my keys. I knew where the watchmen would be. It wasn't hard to avoid them. Oh, the shame of it.
Yes, Mr. Sheep, the shame of it, when honest citizens turn to crime. But I notice the shame is only felt when you're caught.
I'd like to make a statement, if I may.
Yes, Miss Shaw, go ahead.
You must be wondering, Inspector Stone, just where I fit into all this.
I have been puzzled by it, Miss Shaw.
My real name is Lois Birkinshaw. And for the last 3 years, I've been employed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
You're an FBI agent?
Yes. The Bureau has long suspected that prominent businessmen all over the country were investing money in the local organizations of the syndicate. This practice was not only immoral, but near criminal, and was also defrauding the inland revenue of taxation on the profits. I'm one of the agents whose task it was to obtain evidence of this in the hope of stamping out the practice.
So that's how you knew about Kathy?
Yes, Miss Malden. That's how I was able to furnish Inspector Stone with the details of Mr. Lacey's dealings with the syndicate through Mr. Seguera.
It was part of your job to get close to the syndicate?
Yes. And I also became friendly with Hannah Vogue in an attempt to pin the charge on Aldous Lacey.
Thank you, Miss Birkinshaw. Now we'd better clear up something with Miss Malden.
Yes, Inspector.
You are Arlene Malden, the producer of the show.
Yes.
The name you mentioned a moment ago, Kathy, was the name of your sister who was recently found drowned in San Antonio?
That's right.
Isn't it a fact that your sister had been living under the protection of Aldous Lacey?
Yes.
That he'd thrown her over and she wrote you a letter saying she knew something about him and intended to make him pay for it?
Yes.
You destroyed that letter and said nothing about it in the coroner's court for lack of proof and to avoid scandal.
That's correct.
No, it's a lie. You witch, you lying devilish...
Take it easy, Lacey. You're going to need all your strength for the trial.
All right. It's true, part of it. Kathy did find out about the money I'd put into the syndicate. I killed her. I was desperate. We went swimming, and I held her head under the water. But when I got back here, I had a visit from her sister, from Arlene Malden, with the copy of a letter from Kathy giving her the story.
What? You didn't destroy the letters? And you didn't tell me about the most important one?
No, because she wanted to use it for blackmail. I've been paying her $1,000 a month to keep her from showing that letter to the San Antonio police.
It's a lie. It's a fantasy. I never took a cent from him in my life.
The account is in the Carley branch of the Devonport Bank in the name of Arlene Strand.
What about Hannah Vogue?
Well, she found out, too. I nearly went out of my mind. I couldn't kill again, but I couldn't afford to pay 2 lots of blackmail. I told Arlene Malden. She laughed at me. Called me a spineless weakling.
He's making it up. He killed Hannah Vogue and he's trying to fix it on me.
You won't get out of it like that. You told me to bring her over to your apartment that Wednesday night. You made me make an excuse to leave her for half an hour. And when I came back, Hannah was dead. You'd poisoned her.
And that's when you got Sheep to help you put the body in the window before thinking of a better way of disposing of it?
Yes, I wish I were dead.
Mr. Lacey, I prophesy you'll get your wish. And Miss Malden will be right alongside you.
That's ridiculous. You've got no proof. Lacey's lying his head off.
I don't think so. And that letter he spoke of, the copy which you showed him, must still exist in the original, and the police will find it. That, I think, ladies and gentlemen of our audience, is the finish of this program. There's no future in murder. I have only one announcement to make. I said before that I was an actor, a man whose conscience was part of your conscience, those of you who are watching me now. This program was brought to you tonight by your own faith and honesty, sponsored by your pride in your city and its people. When something like this program tonight can happen, and does, our city is a good place to live in. Good night. I nodded to the orchestra leader for the closing theme music of the show. Then suddenly the police appeared with Inspector Jakes in charge, and Arlene, Lacey, and Sheep were taken off. And Sam was at my elbow.
Nice work, Rock. You wrote a good script, and off the cuff. Better than I could have done. Oh, it was a colossal show.
Yeah? Hey, don't you realize what I've done? I've just sent my sponsor to the electric chair.
I wouldn't worry too much about that. If those phones aren't running hot with prospective new sponsors, I'll go back to writing copy for commercials.
Hey, I never thought of that. Well, what do you know? Arlene always wanted this show to get top rating, and it took a murder she committed herself to do it.
This is Carter Brown. Well, I guess after that story, nobody's going to want me to write for TV. But you know, I agree with my hero. There's no future in murder, except in writing about it. And it's fun, too. I'll be back again with another story for you, called Hazard in Hong Kong, and the hero's name is Tony Masters. Or at least, that's the name he finds himself saddled with. If you're listening, you'll find out why. Meanwhile, this is Carter Brown saying so long for now. Be seeing you.
In Belladonna Was Poison, you heard our star Frank Waters as Rock Stone. The Carter Brown Mystery Theatre, based on the best-selling novels by Carter Brown, is dramatized and directed by Maurice Travers for Grace Gibson Radio Productions.